welcome to another Money Morning Routine. All right, so a lot to show you. I wasn't able to get on yesterday. I had a ton of orders that came in from my other business, Pine Manor Naturals, for my fall soap launch, and so I had to get a bunch of orders packed. So today, actually it was really late last night, I closed out my budget, closed out October, getting ready to start November. So let's start with that. Anytime you are closing out your budget, you want to make sure you get fully updated with your tracking. One of the things that I had to do, and one of the questions I get when I'm closing out my budget is, Miko, what if you have unused cash in your cash envelopes at the end of your tracking period? So it depends. You can roll it over into the next month if you want to use it then. You can save it. You can use it to pay off debt. You can see I have a couple of different piles here. This pile here is, I only had $8. This is the smallest amount of money I have left over in my cash envelopes in a really long time. So I have $8 that I'm rolling over from, that is a rollover, I should say, not a rollover. It's money that I have unused cash from October. You can see I have a little sticky note that says vacay. It's going to just go into my vacation savings. The next pile I have is I made $235 from my Pine Manor farm stand. This is just from selling eggs and some soaps out there. 218 came in as cash. The rest was Venmo. So the Venmo, here's what I've decided. Venmo, I'm just going to let sit there. I get about $25 to $35 a month in Venmo. I'm just going to let it add up over and over again. And I'm going to use that Venmo to get my nails done. So once I have enough money saved up in my Venmo, it's going to be a little treat for me to get my nails done. You can see that I went ahead and got rid of the baseballs. I had baseballs on my fingers. It's a really horrible lighting right now, but this is kind of like a deep purple. Anyways, so $218. The reason I need this is because after going through and updating my checking account spending, Chewy, that was supposed to come out in November, came out in October. And November Chewy I was planning to be a little more expensive because I had some chicken waters on there. So $410 that was actually supposed to come out of next month's Chewy expense came out this month. So my checking account cushion is down to $223, which is the lowest I've ever had it in a really long time. So I'm going to use the $218 when I go down to the bank today to pull out cash from my envelopes. I'm just going to deposit this and write it down in my November expense tracker as other income and just leave it towards my checking account cushion. This is going to help replenish my checking account cushion. All right. So got my updated spending. Now let's talk about very quickly before we get to my closeout, my Arizona trip. I haven't done a video about this yet. So we just got back from Arizona. Here's a breakdown of our spending. I had a $4,400 budget. Now, the Airbnb was $1,298. It was split between 8 other people. So transportation was $750. Out of that, it was about $450 that was on rental car. The rest was towards gas and some other things. So it was in the very beginning of my book. You can see I have a breakdown of my budget here. It was $455 for the rental car. $705 is what I spent on the car. Flights was $602. Food, this is where I was over budget. I had $900 budgeted, but I spent $1,100. Activities was $500. I spent $465. Spending, now this is for personal items like clothing or gifts for the kids. I spent $410. I'm $110 over budget, but I didn't spend any of my miscellaneous. So I ended up at $45.80, which I'm over by $180. I'm fine with that. Activities that we ended up doing, I thought I should mention. We did a Pop Stroke, Bam Kazam, and Top Golf there. So next year, I'm just telling them, hey, you might want a little bit more of an activity budget if I decide to go next year, or if we decide to go again next year. So that is my Arizona spending budget. Now, if we get to my closeout, so here is my October budget category breakdown. Now, I had a total monthly inflow of $11,839. Now, this is not earned income, all earned income. $586 was my starting balance. This is what I had in my checking account at the beginning of October, the start of my tracking period. $9,200 for earned income. That's my TBM paycheck. And then I used $2,053 as my savings use. This is sinking funds, money that I had saved in previous months that I ended up spending in October. Now, if it's in red, I was over budget. If it's in green, I was under budget. You can see I was over in a lot of different categories. So fun and entertainment, I already knew I was going to be over because I was a little over my vacation spending budget, but I also had some other things in there that wasn't planned for. Spent a little bit more on gas and car because I had to get 2 tabs this month that I wasn't really budgeting for. Over by 58 for health and beauty. I went and spent money on my nails before the trip, so that's what put me over there. Pets, $392 I was over, well, because I had $410 come out that wasn't supposed to until later that month. It's just the way it fell this month because Chewy sends it every 4 weeks, not on a specific certain day of the month. So every 4 weeks, sometimes you end up twice in 1 month. And then I did do a joint transfer of $2,000 to our joint checking account. Now, I'm only off by 2. I think that's due to rounding. But this is essentially where I am for my monthly budget category breakdown. For October, I am still doing my steak and rice for dinner. I showed that on my Instagram. And actually tonight I need to make up another batch of that. So now we're starting November. Okay. Here's my November budget calendar. And a couple of different things are happening. So like I mentioned, I have these two. This needs to go on vacation savings, $8 there. The $218 from my farm stand just goes to replenish my checking account cushion. All right, my November budget is done. And I have my cash envelopes already printed and made. My teller slip is done. You may notice on my teller slip this month that a lot of them, most of it's big bills, and that's because I am just taking out what I need for my cash envelopes. Usually I've been trying to break it down into some smaller bills so I can use them for like my savings challenge or my 100 envelope challenge. This month I am just focusing on getting through the month and not overspending. So I have a couple of notes here. In November, something very different in my budget is I'm starting my 2026 sinking funds. And this month in November, I'm also going to start prepping my brand new Budget by Paycheck workbook, the one with the Be Kind cover that's dedicated to my mom. I'm going to start prepping that for the new year and really getting that figured out, whether I want to use the savings trackers in the beginning of the workbook for my savings goals or not, and getting that all figured out. Now, a big thing, like I said, with my November budget was starting my sinking funds all over again for 2026. Usually I wait until January to start my 2026 sinking funds, but I wanted to give myself a couple extra months to save. So I started in November. So that's a big thing. But with all of this happening, I'm 100% ready to go to the bank today and pull out cash to stuff my cash envelopes and bring these cash piles down to the bank. I do need to make a run to take my change to the bank sometime soon because my change jar is full. But because today is a really heavy day, I'm just focusing on closing out my budget and getting what I need to get done as far as starting that new tracking period, new budget in November. And another thing that I did is I want to mention, now for a really long time, you have seen me have trackers for my cash spending and my checking account spending. I have decided that more of my spending now, what I had thought originally was I was going to move all my bills, all my spending, including my cash envelope spending, all of my spending was going to go onto a credit card starting in November. And I was really surprised by the comments that I got about me making that decision. All right, I want to talk directly to the camera for this part. And I'm sorry about the bad lighting, but for the longest time, I was really scared to use credit cards because the majority of the debt that I had the hardest time paying off back when I paid off my $77,000 worth of debt and became debt free was credit card debt. Credit card debt is literally evil. It is the worst type of debt, especially store department credit cards. The interest is so high. It's really hard to make progress to pay it off. And knowing myself and knowing what type of spender I am, for a long while there, I didn't trust myself to use credit cards. And I was very vocal about that. Being very in tune, knowing yourself well enough to say, hey, yes, I can, or yes, I can't use credit cards responsibly. And for a long time, I was in the can't. I did not trust myself to use them responsibly. And so I was vocal about it. I don't use credit cards. But when I came out and said, hey, it's been now, over 4 years since I've been debt-free. I've learned a lot on my financial journey, learned a lot about my spending habits, learned a lot about my discipline. And I feel like I'm finally ready to say, hey, yes, I can use my credit card for spending and trust myself to pay it off every single month. And when I made that announcement online, I was so surprised by kind of the backlash. It was, I'm going to unfollow you because you said you were never going to use credit cards. I can't believe you're going to use credit cards. That's not what you teach and preach. No. I feel like if that's what you believe I taught and preached, then there was a miscommunication, because I've always believed you can use debt but not have debt. I never had the mentality that all debt is bad. I just knew myself when I was working through that part of my financial journey that I didn't trust myself to use credit cards. But I am in that spot now, and I feel like I am ready to put more of my spending that I would have done anyways, bills, regular spending, on my credit card to start earning a little bit of my rewards points if I can. So let me show you my expense trackers. Okay, so I have one for my cash and one for my checking. Now, like I said, I had a plan to move all my bills, my automatic payments to my bills, as well as all cash spending to my credit card. I wasn't 100% ready to make that full leap in November as far as like moving all of my bills over. However, also to mention, there are some bills that don't allow you to use a credit card. So I'm going to start small. I now have, if I flip the page, my Capital One Venture credit card. It's right here. It has its own tracking period. When I use this credit card throughout the month, whenever that may be, like I said, it's not going to be as great as I expected. However, if I do use it, I will show you how I will track it and how I'm going to pay it off at the end of the month. Now, it is true. I am starting every single month, if I use a credit card, with the balance of zero. Why? Because I pay it off every single month. Now, I get some people that say, well, Miko, what if you don't pay it off until the end of your tracking period and it's still showing a balance even though you're starting a new tracking period? That's fine. Tracking your spending is all about the spending of money, not so much the movement of money. You don't have to be especially when it comes to credit card tracking. So I will show you that as I work through this journey to get there, to get where I want to be with that part of my journey. But that's all I have for my Monday morning routine.